St Augustine's with St Luke's Church. Today I'm in St Augustine's Church, but unfortunately you can't be here with me at the moment. So I'm going to have to tell you the story of the Christmas journey with you in your schools or wherever you happen to be, and I'm going to be showing you around several places that we've set up in our church so that they can help me tell this story. St Augustine's Church is a very special place for many people, and they come here to sing, meet other people, to worship, say their prayers, and have fun at lots of the time as well. But today I want you to really listen very carefully and see what you can learn from our story. In a moment, Helen, someone that you know quite well, many of you, is going to begin our story for you. So if you're sitting really well and listening really carefully, I'll hand over to Helen to tell the first part of our story, and I will see you later.
Welcome to the Christmas journey. Who's looking forward to Christmas? I know I am. Now, I wonder, what is the biggest present or the best present you've ever had? Maybe you'd like to pause the video and tell the person you're sitting next to. Now, those are all wonderful presents. But, you know, there are some presents that are so big that nobody notices them. Some presents are so huge that you don't even know that they're there. And the only way to know that they're there is to go right back to the beginning when they were given. Right back to the beginning. In the beginning, when God made the heavens and the earth, there was nothing. The earth was barren, with no life in it. It was under a roaring ocean, covered in darkness. But the Spirit of God hovered over the water. And then God said, "I command light to appear." And that's what happened. Light appeared in the darkness. Now there was light and dark. This was the light that all light comes from, the light of life, the light of God. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. When God saw what he had made, God said, "It is good." Now, when I say, when God saw what he had made, I want you to put your thumbs up and say, "It is good." When God saw what he had made, God said, "It is good." Evening came, and then morning. That was the first day. Then God said, "I command a dome to appear, to separate the waters above from the waters below." And that's what happened. God made the dome and named it Sky. When God saw what he had made, God said, "It is good." Evening came, and then morning. That was the second day. Then God said, "I command all the water below to come together in one place, so dry ground will appear." And that's what happened. God called the dry ground land, and the water he called sea. And then he said, "I command the land to be full of all sorts of green and growing things, plants and flowers and seeds and grains that give life." And that's what happened. When God saw what he had made, God said, "It is good." Evening came, and then morning. That was the third day. Then God said, I command lights to appear in the sky, lights that will help tell time for seasons and years and special days. So that's what happened. God made 2 lights. The greater light to rule the day, the sun. The lesser light to rule the nighttime, the moon. And God made the stars. When God saw what he had made, God said, it is good. Then God said, I command the sea to be full of all sorts of creatures. What kind of creatures can you think of that swim in the sea? I've got some here to remind us. Got a jellyfish, an octopus, and a very large shark, some fish. And then God said, I command the sky to be full of all sorts of creatures that fly. Birds like robins and eagles, seagulls, pigeons. And things that fly that aren't birds, like butterflies and bees. When God saw what he had made, God said, it is good. Evening came, and then morning. That was the 5th day. And then God said, I command the land to be full of all sorts of creatures. Creatures that hop and skip and jump. Creatures that crawl and creep and slither. Tall animals. Very large animals. And some animals in between. Some animals with 2 legs and some with many legs. And then God said, let's make people, humans, to be like us. They can look after the great present that I have given. All the animals and all of the fish and the birds and the trees. And so God made people. And he breathed his life into them. He gave them a special blessing and said, have lots and lots of children and look after my world. When God saw what he had made, God said, it is good. In fact, when God looked at all that he had made, God said it was very good. Evening came and then morning. That was the 6th day. Then, on the 7th day, God rested. Not because he was tired, but because he'd finished his work. So God made the 7th day special so that people could remember the great present. Now, I don't know what you'd put in that square. I don't know where you go to remember. It could be in your house. It could be in your garden, by a tree or by a lake. Only you know that. But what I do know is that this day is special, and Christians mark this day with a cross. Now, I wonder what part of God's present is your favourite? I wonder if there's anything that we can take away and still have everything that we need. I wonder what would happen if we didn't look after God's world. I wonder what would happen if people chose to walk in darkness instead of the light of life. I wonder what would happen if we allowed the sea to be full of rubbish. I wonder what would happen if we cut down all the trees and allowed the plants to die. I wonder what would happen if we allowed the air to be full of pollution. I wonder what would happen if we stopped looking after the animals and the birds and the fish. I wonder what would happen if we turned away from the light of life. I wonder what we would do, what would happen if we forgot to rest and remember. I wonder what God will do to put back his broken world. I wonder what God will do to mend the broken present. Maybe as you carry on your journey, you can think about that question. What will God do to put back what has been broken?
Well, to answer the questions that Helen has set for you, we need to go back in time. So let's all strap ourselves in very tightly to our time machine, and we will travel back a very, very long way. Great, well done everyone. We've arrived and it's now 2,000 or more years ago. And we're about to go to a very special place and meet a very special person who had an unusual message given to her from God. So let's go and meet that special person.
Oh, hello. Welcome to my house. My name is Mary. I've been spending this morning doing some baking. Do you like baking with your family at home? I love it, and every day I have to bake fresh bread for my family to share together. It smells really good.
Hark the herald angels sing glory! Oh, hello. I'm an angel. I've been sent from heaven by God to look for a special girl called Mary. Are you Mary?
Hello? Hello?
Oh,
I'm Mary.
hello.
Hello?
God said Mary was a very special person. Are you sure you're Mary?
Yes, I'm definitely Mary.
Oh, okay then. Well, God said I had to give you a message. It's good news. You're going to have a baby boy. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, how can I have a baby? Joseph and I aren't even married yet.
Oh. You sure you are Mary?
Yes, I'm definitely Mary.
You're special?
Well, if you say so.
Well, God said you were special. Well, with God, anything is special. Anything is possible. He's going to send his Holy Spirit to come and visit you. And you're going to have God's Son. He's going to be special too. And he's going to have a kingdom that will last forever.
Well, what's this special baby going to be called?
Oh, he did tell me. Oh, I've forgotten.
Oh.
Oh, Malachi? Zedekiah? Zabalioni? No, maybe it was a Jeremiah, Joseph, John, Judas, Jelly Baby? No, Jesus, that was it. Jesus, you've got to call him Jesus.
Wow, so God has chosen me to have
Yes.
a special baby and I have to call him Jesus.
Yes.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
It is amazing. It's wonderful. It's good news. I've got to go back to heaven now. Bye. Hark the herald angels sing.
Wow, what a strange visitor. I'd better go and find Joseph and tell him what's happened. Bye.
So Mary's gone off to go and find Joseph and tell him this news. She was just so excited by finding out that she was this special chosen person to be the special mother to have the baby Jesus. When she got to see Joseph, he wasn't so sure about it. He wasn't very happy really because it was very unexpected for them. They hadn't planned to have a baby at the moment. And now suddenly, in 9 months' time, they've got all the preparation to do for this special baby that was going to be born. And if some of you have had baby brothers and sisters, you'll know what goes on in your house. There's all sorts of things to get ready and prepare. Anyway, Joseph actually thought about it and he realised that he'd heard about this special person who was going to have a special baby from the teachings that he'd heard. So Mary and Joseph settled down and got ready for the baby, and I expect Mary's parents helped as well. But just before she was about to have the baby, something else happened that was, well, quite different really. So Mary and Joseph were told that they'd got to go on a journey and they'd got to go to a place called Bethlehem, because that's where Joseph had been born, and his family came from there. And Caesar Augustus, the ruler, had said that everyone had to go back and register where they'd been born. So they got ready to go off on this long journey. It was about 100 miles, I think, to Bethlehem. So we've moved on now from Nazareth, where Mary and Joseph were living, to Bethlehem, where they've come now to register for the census. And we're not actually in Bethlehem, the village, we're out on the hillside. And you can see the hills behind me and the stars. And I'm with a group of shepherds at the moment. And they're looking after their sheep out here. They try very hard to find the best grass they can because they want their sheep to be particularly healthy and well fed. So they walk the hills and valleys all day. And then at night they gather their sheep together into a fold and they light a fire in the middle to protect them from wild animals and to keep themselves warm and safe. They wear those headdresses because that keeps the sun off them in the daytime and it keeps them warm at night. When the sheep goes astray, when it gets lost, they go looking for it because each one is really precious. And they have this special stick which they use for themselves to keep themselves balanced on the hillside when they're walking, but also to rescue any sheep that go astray. But while they're out on those hillsides, it's often very cold at night. They shiver.
While shepherds wash their flocks by night. Oh, there's the star. And where's the sheep? Oh, hello, sheep. Nice to see you. Oh, yes. Yes, I'm an angel. Yes, yes. You've never seen an angel? Oh, they're all around. You just don't see us all the time. Yes. So I found the sheep. So where are the shepherds? Oh, are you shepherds? God said you were very special. Are you really shepherds? Only one way to find out. I'll need to sniff you. What a smell! Oh yes, you're real shepherds, aren't you? Well, I'm an angel and I've come from God with some good news. Today, in the city of David, Bethlehem, there is born a baby, a special baby who is going to be the King, the Son of God. Yes? Oh yes, that's right. Yes. Would you like to? Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't go and visit him. Yeah, see, God told me that I had to tell the shepherds first. Not sure why, but he seemed to think you were very important people. So he wants you to go and visit this baby. Now, what was the name? Oh, I've forgotten the name again. Jesus! That was it, Jesus. So you need to find him. He's not in a normal house. He's going to be in a stable with cows and donkeys and, yes, probably with sheep. Yes, that's right, probably with sheep, yeah. And you might see his mum. Her name's Mary. Last time I saw her, she was wearing a blue dress. Okay, that's a clue. Yes. Oh, yes. Do you think you should take a present for the baby? Would you like to take a sheep as a present for the baby? There you go then. Off we go. Oh, little town of Bethlehem.
Well, the shepherds now have got something very important to do. They're going to go down from the hillside and they're going to go and visit this baby that Gabriel's just told them about. They were really surprised. That angel had really shocked Mary with the news about her going to be having a baby, and now Gabriel had really shocked the shepherds. But they gathered themselves together and they took a sheep with them to offer as a gift, and they travelled down into the village to find the baby Jesus. And they knew that they would have to watch that star because that would be above where the baby Jesus was to be found. We're going to meet a sheep and a dog who are going to tell you about their stable and what happened there. Listen carefully towards the end of what they have to say to find out what they thought about the shepherds and also what they think they might find happening next in their stable. So let's listen to the sheep and their dog telling their stable story.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, who are these people?
They're visitors.
Hello, visitors.
They're here to see the baby.
What baby?
What do you mean, what baby?
Well, what baby are they here to see?
That?
There's a baby. There's a baby in the picture.
Yes, I know. He got here last night.
How did he get here?
What? You mean you don't remember?
No.
What? Were you asleep?
I do sleep a lot. I'm very tired.
That's true. So, that's Mary. That's Joseph.
Oh,
They came last night.
with the baby.
Well, she was about to have the baby, and then...
Oh, is that what that noise was about?
Yes. So they couldn't stay in the inn upstairs because they were double booked. It's a very busy time of year.
It is.
So they had to stay in here because it's better than sleeping outside.
Oh, that's true.
And we're here, so that makes it all the better.
Mm-hmm.
So they came in, and after a while, she said it was time to have her baby.
Right
So-
here.
Yeah, right here. So some people came to help. And then she had the baby.
Is that what all that crying was?
Oh, he made a lot of noise.
As much noise as me?
And so did she. Yes, as much noise as you
I can be very
and
noisy.
your brothers put together.
Shall I be noisy now?
No. Okay. Anyway, she didn't want to put him on the floor, so she put him in a manger.
That's where we keep our food.
I know, but we'll have to make do, because he's a very special baby.
Is that why so many people came to visit him?
Yeah, so first we had some shepherds. They said they heard an angel talking to them about this baby.
About this baby?
Yes, about son, and they had to come and see. So they came, and they saw, and they brought a few sheep with them.
I heard some sheep.
Yes, they were just as smelly as you.
They weren't as loud as me though.
No, that is true.
I can be very loud.
Maybe they know how to use their indoor voice. You're working on that, aren't you? Yes. Anyway, these shepherds were so excited that they couldn't keep it to themselves. And so when they left, they started telling everybody all about the baby. And so we've had all of these visitors. We've had children and teachers and parents and...
Oh, is that why it's been so bright all night?
Well, that's something else. At the same time the baby was born, a star appeared right there.
A star in the sky?
A star in the sky appeared, telling everybody where the baby was.
Right over our stable?
Yes. I wonder how far the light goes.
It's very bright. I reckon you can see that star from miles and miles and miles away. Miles and miles.
I wonder who else can see the star. I wonder who's going to come next. We better leave him sleeping. Bye for now.
I wonder if you worked out what the sheep and the dog were saying about the shepherds. They actually thought they were smelly. And they talked about that. And I think they're going to hope that someone else might come into their stable soon. They've had all sorts of people coming in because the dog and the sheep moaned quite a bit about the fact the shepherds went away so excited and told everyone. So all sorts of people came to visit this new baby and bring things for him. But they wanted someone a little bit different, I think, to come into their stable and see them. So perhaps we need to go and find out about that next. Okay. We've seen Mary in her kitchen where she had all that she needed, but it was nothing like the kitchens we have today. Then we went up onto the hillside with the shepherds, and they had even less than Mary. They were cold in the night time, and their food had to come from the village. It was brought up for them. And they were a little bit smelly. Then we went to the stable, and that was a really unusual place for a newly born baby to be born. The innkeeper had let Mary and Joseph go and stay there because there was no other room in Bethlehem that day because so many people had gone to be registered into their hometowns. But Mary and Joseph made it as comfortable as they could for the baby and wrapped him in the manger and kept him warm there. And the animals and everyone who visited were really, really kind. But those animals in the manger wondered if someone else might come to see them. And now, if you look around me now, it's changed completely. There are all sorts of really, really rich things. We've got lovely hangings behind me, beautiful red, and I'm sitting on a lovely yellow chair, lovely colours. We've got all sorts of jewels, and we've got some precious gifts beside me too. Now, I wonder who came here and who was travelling in this. Sometimes we call them kings, but they weren't really kings as we know kings today. They didn't have land and they didn't rule over people. A better way of talking about them is to call them wise men or magi. And they studied the stars. They were astrologers. And where they lived in the east, they'd seen a very, very unusual star. And they decided that they should go and find out more about it. So they followed that star for miles and miles and miles, travelling with their attendants and all their rich tents and things on camels, and eventually they came to the outskirts of Bethlehem and they settled there for a little while. But they didn't quite know where that star was, so they went and talked to Herod about it, and Herod told them to come back and tell him when they found out where it was. But that's another story, really. Anyway, they found the manger. And they found Jesus. And they had taken gifts with them. They'd taken some very special gifts because they thought they were going to see a special baby. Some of you will know the gifts that they took, but I'm just going to remind you now. One of them had gold. And that was the sort of thing that was given to kings in the time of Jesus. So they were really saying to Jesus, we know that you're going to be a special person. You're going to lead people and help people in all sorts of ways, in the ways that kings did. So this was the most precious thing they could find. Then they had some liquids, some lotions that had special things as well. This one was called frankincense. Quite a difficult word, some of you will know it. Frankincense. That was used in the temple and the synagogues where people worshipped in those days. And it gave off a beautiful perfume. And when they were saying their prayers and learning about God, they found that that smell really, really helped them. And they thought and prayed in a better way because of the lovely smells that they could smell there. And the third thing came from a tree, from the bark of a tree. And again, it was an ointment, and it was called myrrh. Now, myrrh was used to help heal people, which of course we know now is something that Jesus did quite a lot of in his life. But it was also used when people got to the very end of their lives. It was used in part of the burial services. And we think maybe the kings brought this gift because they knew that Jesus was going to live a life, do all sorts of amazing things, but would have a death that was actually quite different to what we might expect. Now, I think Helen's going to tell you a little bit more about that in the next part of the story, because we started with Helen, and now we're going back to Helen. She asked you to think of some things while we were going round on this journey, and if you think about the one thing that you've learnt about all the way through this journey, that might help you to answer Helen's question. So let's go in to see Helen again.
I hope that you enjoyed the Christmas journey and that you managed to think a little bit about how God would repair his broken present. In the beginning, in the second beginning, the new beginning, there was a baby. God chose Mary to be the mother of his only son. This baby was the light of the world, the light that all light comes from. Mary and Joseph looked after the child, and then he became a boy, and then he became an adult. When he was about 30, he travelled to the Jordan River, where his cousin John was baptizing people. Jesus went down into the water, and John brought him back up. Some people who were there said they saw a dove come close to where Jesus was. Others who were there said they heard a voice that said, "You are my son, I'm pleased with you." And so Jesus began his work. But what was his work? Well, his work was to put back together everything that had been broken. He started by telling stories. And these stories were like seeds, not planted in the ground, but planted in people's hearts. And the more they listened, the more they grew. And they learned about God's love, about what God was like, and about God's rescue plan for the world. What else did Jesus do? Jesus challenged the darkness. He came close to people, even the people that no one else wanted to come close to. Watch, look. When people came close to Jesus, they could see things they could never see before. They could do things they couldn't do before. They were made well. What else did Jesus do? Jesus told everyone how much God cares about them. He said that God cares for every sparrow and every bird that flies and every sparrow that falls. One day, Jesus' friends were out on a boat, and a storm came, and the wind and the waves tossed the boat about, and they thought they were going to drown. But Jesus stood up and told the wind and the waves to be quiet. And that's what happened. Jesus said, if God cares about the sparrows and about the birds, he cares about people even more. The more people got to know Jesus, the more people came close to Jesus, the more they knew deep peace on the inside. Finally, Jesus knew that the only way to repair what had been broken would be to allow himself to go to Jerusalem one last time and allow himself to be stretched out on a cross and die. He did this because it was the only way for God to come close to people and for people to come close to each other. But 3 days later, Jesus came back to life again, and people saw him. And now anyone who wants to can be part of God's new creation. They can live with Jesus in the light forever and be part of God's new family. That is how God put together the broken present. And it all began with a little baby at Christmas. Now I hope that you have enjoyed your time with us this morning or this afternoon, and that you've learnt something new, and that as we go through Christmas, you can remember this story. But there's another way to carry the story with you. When you light a candle and blow it out, what happens? Let's see. Smoke appears from the candle. And as it goes into the air, it disappears, but it's still there, and you can bump into it. And it's the same with the story of Christmas, that we might forget that it's there, and all of a sudden we'll bump into it, and we'll remember something about that first Christmas time. I hope that you have a fantastic Christmas, whatever you're doing and wherever you are. Thank you.